That's what people want to do. Yeah, and that's, leaving my house at 8:30, getting the bus at 8:20, so that I can getting down here at 9:32. And then getting off.
The system again. You wanna sign? You want me to sign? John.
I'm back. How you doing, Charlene?
Doing okay.
We're both purpled up.
Huh?
Still waiting to see. Yes, I'm waiting to see him.
It's run by one person. Yeah. So whatever comes up on TV, it's gonna come up here.
Oh, so we're not individual?
No, it's not individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Green. Yep, now it's good to go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 7th, 2026 STAC meeting. I'm calling today's meeting to order at 10:05. Before the meeting begins, I'll allow our interpreter to introduce themselves and provide instructions for interpretation.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de la interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have our clerk, Francesca Webb, please confirm that we have a quorum?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. I will now ask our SANDAG staff liaison, Tim Garrett, to lead the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay Diegueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past.
Thank you, Tim. Now please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin with our agenda items, let's review how to participate in today's meeting. Members of STAC may raise their hand and I will call on you by name. In front of you are iPads where you will find today's agenda and supporting materials by clicking on the arrow on the top left. Please note that you can zoom in and out using the iPad touchscreen. Clerk, can you please provide a quick reminder on how the public comments will work?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, bear with me just a moment. If you are in the lobby and would like to speak in person this morning, please fill out a speaker slip. It'll be provided to the clerk and I will call on you by name when it is your turn to speak. If you are with us on the Zoom, please raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand feature before the end of the presentation on the item that you'd like to speak on. And again, I will call on you by name or by the last 4 digits of your phone number if you are calling in by phone. And I believe today we'll have 1 minute per public comment.
Thank you, Clerk. Do any members of the working group have any questions on meeting procedures before we continue? Okay, let's go to item number 2, public agenda, non-public agenda, comments, communications, and member comments. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the STAC on any relevant issue that is not on this agenda. STAC members and the SANDAG staff also may present brief updates and announcements under this agenda item. Clerk, do we have any non-agenda comments from the public?
Thank you, Chair. We do. We will start 2 in the room with us. We'll start with Purita Javier and then go to Cesar Javier. And if you're a member of the public online that would like to speak, please raise your hand now.
A point of clarification, Madam Chair. How many minutes?
1 minute.
Life and death story, 1 minute? Thank you. Okay. Start here. Say good morning.
Good morning. With our prayers, faith, and goodwill, friendship, and spirit of neighborhood, we plead to you for urgent favorable action to seize and stop your ceramics, battery, and film operations and collectively refocus our efforts with the city action plans for zero carbonization to address global warming, climate change. We all have the right to live a life free in a clean and safe our designated residential area called home.
1 minute.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Our next speaker
Thank
will
you,
be Cesar
SANDAG,
Javier.
for this 1 minute to share our story. People are dying, sick, dying, and with reason to believe died. But the city government, San Diego, with the 11 elected officials, failed, ignored, neglected, particularly the crisis in Tijuana River Valley pollution. I could just imagine, I just spoke to one from Fallbrook and gave us that inspiration. Sir, we are here to help others, to help our elected officials to open their eyes, not their pocket. Open their eyes, offer their big hearts and minds to start cleaning of the mess. 1 minute, by God, help us. SANDAG, thank you for your 1 minute.
Thank you. And that concludes the public comments, Chair.
Thank you. Do any members have any non-agenda comments? Charlene?
Yes, I have just found out that MTS Access has purchased 2 new orders of buses. One is a 37 series bus. The other one is a 39 series bus. These paratransit buses are going to be very inadequate. I had a driver let me know because my mother-in-law uses a large wheelchair, electric chair, but she also has has to have her feet up. She will not fit on those buses. We've been put on a list of do not send this bus. There are only 2 wheelchair tie-down areas on the new buses on the 39s. That is not adequate. There's times when all 4 wheelchair areas or tie-down spots are needed. The seats are needed. These are much less capacity and they're narrower. I was told, the driver that talked to me, said they're about half the width of a regular MTS bus of the ones that are existing. That is going to make it difficult for a lot of people in power chairs and scooters to be able to maneuver to get on and off of that bus. They should have looked at who was using the bus and not just the economics of the cost of the bus. It's going to fall very short, and I'm concerned that it's going to affect the time schedules for people needing rides because that makes less seats available for people who need a larger area to board that still fits within the ADA requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Do we have any updates from the SANDAG staff?
Yes, thank you. Several updates. First off, please welcome Shane Hughes as a primary member and Todd Lordson as the alternate who's not here today. But they're new STAC members as representatives of social service providers for people with disabilities. So thank you to Wayne and Adriana who served on the selection panel, and welcome to Shane and Todd. I know Todd has been on the panel before. So yeah, welcome. Next off, it's been several months since the STAC convened, obviously, so thank you to everyone for your patience. Last year, SANDAG conducted a governance refresh project to assess the effectiveness of its policy advisory committees and working groups. So I think the Transportation Committee, Executive Committee, STAC, Mobility Working Group, all kinds of groups. The comprehensive governance assessment included a review of SANDAG's enabling statutes and requirements, surveys of members, interviews with board members, committee and working group members and staff, and a scan of peer metropolitan planning organizations, so similar organizations. More than 120 individuals, including some people in this room, contributed feedback, and we really value that. As a result of this process, STAC is being maintained as a working group, but the meeting frequency is being reduced to once per quarter rather than once every 2 months. So instead of 6 meetings per year, it'll be 4 meetings per year moving forward. This is the main change. This has been updated in the charter, but otherwise we'll be continuing to focus on bringing good discussion items to the STAC and reporting out what we hear in these meetings to the Transportation Committee. So we're going to be reporting up to our elected officials on a regular basis so they know what's going on in this committee. Next update on December 5th last year. So the Transportation Committee approved the 2025 Coordinated Plan. Approval of the plan means that SANDAG will continue to receive federal funding through the Section 5310 program that we can use in our region for specialized transportation. The plan also identifies funding priorities for our specialized transportation grant program and contains recommendations for MTS, NCTD, and other agencies. We expect that the STAC will be an important forum for discussing many of the implementation strategies that we have planned, and more to come on that. I'm sure it'll be a future agenda item where we'll bring you a much more detailed discussion of what was in the plan and how we're going to be implementing it. And so thank you to everyone who participated in the development of the plan. One more, on December 12th, the SANDAG Board of Directors adopted the 2025 Regional Plan, including the Sustainable Community Strategy and Air Quality Conformity Analysis, and certified the accompanying environmental impact report. The regional plan is a long-term planning document that addresses the transportation, infrastructure, land use, housing, and environmental needs of the region, and is another requirement for SANDAG to continue to receive state and federal funding. And again, thank you to everyone who participated in the development of the plan. With that, I'll turn it back to the chair, but happy to take any comments or questions on those updates that I shared.
Okay, See no further comments, we will continue to the consent agenda. This includes item 3.1, the minutes from our September 16th, 2025 meeting. Note that being absent does not prevent members from making corrections or voting on the minutes. Are there any public comments on the consent agenda?
Thank you, Chair. We have no comments on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from members? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Oh, sorry, Charlene, go ahead.
I was going to make the motion. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second from Alex Warner. Will the clerk please take a vote?
Yes, thank you, Chair. For special interest seat A, Ted Kagan. For special interest seat B, Alex Warner. For at-large seat A, Mark Fletcher.
Yes.
At-large seat B, Sharon Beckus. At-large seat C, Charlene Ornelius.
Yes.
For the Travelers Aid Society, Chair Roque.
Yes.
The San Diego Center for the Blind is absent. City of San Diego is absent. For the San Diego Regional Center, Shane Hughes. Jewish Family Service of San Diego, Maureen Glaser. For FACT, Ali Porman. For FACT seat B, Paula Zeely. For MTS Paratransit, Vasilina Heiss.
Yes.
For MTS Fixed Route, Juan Garcia.
Yes.
Seat B is absent for NCTD Fixed Route, and for NCTD Paratransit, Jennifer Lara. That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next item. Item 4.1 is an information item on the transit fare change study that SANDAG is conducting on behalf of MTS and NCTD. Brian Lane from SANDAG will provide the update. Brian?
Morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, STAC Committee. I think most of you know me. I'm Brian Lane, Senior Transit Planner here at SANDAG. I'll be talking about the transit fare change study that was essentially commissioned by MTS and NCTD to look at their fares, and I'll get into the weeds of everything of why. But at MTS's board meeting back in February last year, they did vote to ask that SANDAG help shepherd this fare change study over the next year and a half to look at ways to help both agencies kind of bridge the gap of their fiscal cliff. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And this presentation was taken from the Transportation Committee that I presented at a couple of weeks. So if you already heard this a couple of weeks ago, I apologize. You're going to hear most of this again. But I did present with Mark Olson from MTS and Ione from NCTD. And there's a few slides that are theirs that they would have spoken to, but I'll just kind of go over them quickly today on their behalf. Back in the fall of last year, and I can't remember if STAC did hear an update on the fare change study. No, so this is all kind of new to you. Fall last year, I did present to the Transportation Committee on what the study was about. And so this slide is kind of going over the steps of what a fare change study is. But it's, essentially we're doing a lot of data collection. We collect the current ridership and the revenue numbers from both agencies to understand how much is being brought in and how much the ridership is for all the different fare types. And that then helps inform a model that we have in-house that our economist helped develop that then takes all that data, and then we can run scenarios of fare changes in there and provide outputs of how much ridership and revenue changes you may get from any specific fare change. And I'll be showing you some of the examples of that here in a little bit. Over the 6 months or so process that we've been in so far, we did start developing some fare change scenarios. MTS and NCTD's boards have had a bunch of discussions on this over this period. NCTD actually at 11 a.m. is their executive committee is going to hear this item from their own staff, and then MTS and NCTD this Thursday will be hearing it as well. And I think they may actually be voting on the fare changes, but any information I get from you today, I'll forward on to them so they can have it as part of their presentation Thursday. I talked about the modeling analysis. That's a big part of it. NCTD boards will See that? And then ultimately, this comes back to the SANDAG Transportation Committee, and you're a working group of the SANDAG Transportation Committee, so that's why it's important we come to you. But Transportation Committee has the ultimate authority to approve any changes to the fare ordinance for the region. Generally, the Transportation Committee wants to hear what MTS entities boards have discussed and voted on before they take action on something like this. SANDAG has that authority as the regional planning agency, but we do, obviously take into account heavily what MTS entities boards are telling us. So again, and then through all of that was a lot of public outreach via surveys, pop-up events. They held workshops, virtual workshops, multiple surveys again earlier in the process, and then another survey over the last month or so. I'm going to kind of go quickly through some of these, but so MTS, this was MTS slides. They were talking about the strategy for filling the gap. If you've been hearing about both agencies, there are some potential financial issues going on with how much funding they're getting from the state and federal sources. And the way the funding, and this is even absent of what may happen over the next few months with the federal budget that we just got announced yesterday of what the proposed budget is. If that budget does get enacted as proposed yesterday, it'll be really bad for both agencies. But we do hope the state can help provide some of the gaps on that. But either way, MTS is facing a potential $500 million gap over the next 4 fiscal years. That kind of changes year to year based on different funding, different capital funding. They do spend a lot of money, obviously, buying buses, repairing buses, buying rail cars, repairing the rail, all of that. And then operations is another big part of their budget, and fare revenues help to, sustain that funding. But essentially, they found that about $93 million over the 4 years, or $23 million a year, needs to be filled to help fill that gap to keep operations moving at the rate it is. But even like that wasn't likely enough. Even a month ago, they had to do some small service changes, which were a couple small cuts. And if things keep getting worse, and without a fare increase or fare revenue increasing, potential more service cuts as well. And that's kind of the theme. And so, what does $23 million a year mean? So MTS kind of trying to put it in perspective of what that means. And for them, that's about 26% of all their current fare revenues. If you wanted to do comparable service levels, that could 18 million is all Saturday bus and trolley service. So if they didn't have an extra 18 million, one of the things they may do, and they're not even proposing this at all, but if you cut all Saturday bus and trolley service, that would save you $18 million, just to kind of give you a sense. All weekend bus service is, that was just Saturday, the first one. All weekend bus service is 24 million. All Blue Line trolley service, 7 days a week, is about $22 million a year. So you can kind of see the effect of how much, funds MTS needs to keep their services going. NCTD has a similar crisis coming down the road, not as bad as MTS's, because they've been doing different things with some of the funding that they got from the federal and from during the COVID relief funds and all that. But they do have a potential, $15 million-ish gap as well over the next couple of years. And then they're also exploring ways. And MTS, Mark talked about this at the TC a couple of weeks ago, and they'll talk about it again this week, and they talked about it at their board as well, but the way they can try to fill the gap without raising fares, and they've looked at everything they can try to do. They're really trying to look at service levels, on how they can change some service levels. They're doing things with their capital resources and reserves and things like that. They really would not to have to use reserves. That's kind of like the last option for transit agencies, is to tap into that. They're always trying to look at other ways to fill revenue sources, either through advertising, selling housing, maybe on the transit lots, things like that. But there is even kind of a cap to that on what they can do. But they when they're talking to their boards, they talk about how they've looked under the couch cushions and have tried to find every last penny before doing a fare increase like this. So last fall, we did a ton of surveys We had it out to the public. We did pop-up events. We were out at transit centers, providing people with a QR code to take the survey. If they wanted to do it on paper right there, they could. And we got 5,700 responses, which was pretty massive. We've never had that kind of response. And this was great. We were just kind of asking them, you know, how they ride today, what kind of fare they use, and then what would they prioritize? You know, a slightly higher fare, but keeping the same transit levels, keeping the fares as they are and taking transit cuts. Things like that. So what we heard from them was, you know, prioritizing service levels is very important over the cost to ride. Obviously, different people from different income ranges have different feelings on that, but kind of overall, it was kind of the same message we were getting back then. We did really hear that keep the YLP, the youth pass, keep that permanent, and then try and preserve the senior prices as much as possible, even if that means you may have to raise the price for regular adult riders. We started broaching a phased approach to these fare increases. Like, would you do it over a couple of years? And a lot of the survey respondents really loved that. So we started drafting some of the fare change proposals. First thing we wanted to look at all the peer agencies around the country. And I know we heard from MTS board meeting, a public commenter was saying, why didn't you look at LA Metro? They are not a peer of San Diego's. They're, you know, 10 times bigger. They get a ton of sales tax dollars just for transit that is nowhere near the level, even if you're talking percent wise, not dollar totals. That's way different here than San Diego. But some of the other peers were TriMet in Portland, Dallas, Salt Lake, San Francisco, Sacramento, Denver. And on the slide, we're kind of just showing that overall, San Diego's one-way price is about the same as everyone else's. The adult day pass is about the same as everyone else's, but when you looked at the monthly pass, San Diego's was really much lower than everyone else. And these are just the regular adult passes. The SDM obviously kind of varies across different regions. San Diego actually has a more highly discounted rate for this monthly pass on the SDM because it's subsidized by the SANDAG Transnet funds that helps do that. So, you know, most agencies only do a 50% of the adult pass price. Here in San Diego, it's like 2/3 off of the price. So we started looking at some proposals, and just for the initial packages that we started showing the public a couple months ago, it was just kind of a range of a package A and a B of, you know, a modest fare increase to a pretty heavy fare increase in package B. Essentially, package A was looking at a 50-cent increase on the adult one-way and a 25-cent increase on the SDM one-way. Monthly pass, though, going from $72 to $90, and for SDM pass going from $23 to $30. On package B, it was jumping the one-ways all the way from $250 to $350. The SDM is even less than half at $1.50. And then the SDM on that one actually doing a smaller increase than the package A proposal. And again, these were just trying to get the public's input on these so we could then formulate final proposals to present to MTS and entities boards, which I said will be later this week. For Coaster, they're really exploring trying to remove the 3-zone system that they have out there. It's very confusing for a lot of riders. Most riders are actually using the 3rd zone anyways, which means you're traveling from North County to either Old Town or downtown. There are some riders who are using the 1 zone, but that's very rare because there's better bus options often. Some were using the 2 zone. So with these proposals, by collapsing it into the 1 zone and pricing it essentially what the 3 zone price is today, the people in the 1 zone and 2 zone will get a fair increase, where the 3 zone folks will pretty much stay the same in package A, but on package B, it would be a jump as well. For Sprinter Breeze, for those who ride up there, they do offer, for most Sprinter Breeze riders, they might use the regional pass at $72 because they need to transfer to the MTS region. But if you're staying within solely the NCTD service area, they offer a $59 adult monthly pass or a $19 SDM monthly pass, just for those who stay up in that service area. And they're proposing raising the 59 to 65 in package A and the SDM from 19 to 23. And then so here's the all those that I just kind of talked about. And then we modeled the results and we got some outputs from that. And so for the region, the package A proposal that we talked about would help MTS and NCTD get about $12 million extra dollars a year. But that does come with a ridership loss. And the model is not perfect at estimating exactly either one, because everything can change. I mean, gas prices has a massive effect on transit ridership, all kinds of other policies and programs, and just weather, things happening at the border all have different kinds of impacts. But if all things are being the same, we were kind of estimating about a $2.5 million ridership loss, or like about a 2.5%, 3% ridership loss. And again, that's all things being equal. If gas prices keep going up, ridership will actually keep going up. It's one of those great things for transit planners, but not for the public, right? Package B actually would get MTS and NCD about $18 million more in revenue a year. But the ridership loss would be $1 million more at about $3.5 million a year. So then, like I said, that was just two kind of packages to bring to the public. They did workshops, pop-up events, again, over the last couple months, trying to get feedback from the public. And the workshops were like roundtables at MTS. NTDs were virtual, where they just allow the public to provide they had leading questions and, allowing the public to provide very specific feedback and thoughts and opinions, kind of like a focus group. So the engagement goals for MTS and NTD was, trying to listen to the reactions to those packages, identify the tolerances to the packages, to the increases, and then help inform that final package that they'll bring back later. Oh, it's next week, actually, right? MTS and NTD's board meetings are next Thursday. Sorry, I think I kept saying this Thursday, right? So it's next Thursday. So we do have time to provide the input that we get today, as well as the input they've gotten in the last couple months. Like I said, MTS had done a bunch of workshops. They had 80 plus participants, 800 respondents to their survey. They had their own survey this time because at some point MTS and NC kind of went a little bit separate ways, because with entities, Coaster and Sprinter fares being kind of very particular to their area, they did want to have a survey that was just more tailored to just their riders on that. And MTS did a bunch of outreach at the transit centers. It was very similar results to that first phase. People still favored keeping service levels as high as possible, even if that meant they had to pay more. And I didn't get into the weeds of this, but it's been a long time since the monthly pass price has gone up. I think the last time it was moved to $72 a month was 2009, I believe. So it's been a long time. The one-way fares have gone up, and SDM and youth passes obviously changed a little bit, but the main adult prices haven't really gone up. And so the public were hearing that in these workshops, and their feedback was that they still think, yes, inflation over these last 15 years probably is time for a fare increase. And again, just anything to help make sure that the service levels can stay the same. They were split evenly on package A versus B. Obviously, package B is more expensive, but when MTS and NCD were talking to the public and telling them how important even that bigger increase was for package B, the public were like, okay, I kind of get it. I'd rather have the agency have that extra fare revenue, even if it is kind of hurting some folks' wallets. But the phased approach for package B was more tolerable. And I think MTS and NC both were hearing that, like, do a phased approach, like maybe the first year, this summer and this fall, do one small increase, and then a year from now, do another one, so it doesn't hit folks' wallets all at once. NCTD did similar workshops, online surveys, and transit center outreach at their transit centers, and had similar results. I was kind of talking about all of those. So with that, I have a couple of discussion slides that, we asked the Transportation Committee a couple of weeks ago what they thought about the package A and Bs, what should we relay back to the MTS and NCD boards. There was another slide, the Transportation Committee was, what else can we do to help? What can SANDAG do to help close the funding gap? We don't have a magic bucket of money sitting in our corner. We check our couch cushions all the time as well. But, maybe there is things our board can do to change the sales tax buckets a little bit, although there's not a strong appetite to just fully move money out of streets and roads, let's say, to, because we have a big pot of money in the Transnet that helps pay for the local cities to, fix their streets and roads. There wasn't a strong appetite to take a huge pot of that and move it over to transit. It's all about balancing things. As much as we all are public transit advocates, the board has to kind of think of the whole region and everything else like that. So with that, Chair, I'll turn it back to you for public comment, and then I'd like to hear the committee's reactions.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment, Cesar Javier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recognize advisory board member here. Familiar faces. We are here for others. That's our covenant. We are here to help one another. Value analysis, Madam Chair. Sick, aging seniors. Could we have it free ride? Free ride. Number two, fair, and complementary amenities such as restrooms. Look at our trolley station, bus stations. It's only for the drivers. What about for Purita and Cesar? We have been using those transit and we notice something. Please, let's do something, SANDAG. And what about amenities like air purifier in the bus, air purifier in the trolley?
Thank you very much. Your time has expired, and that concludes the public commenters, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from members? Please raise your hand. Sharon.
There's a lot to unpack there, Brian. I'll
Turn your
tell you.
mic on. Turn
I'm
your
trying
mic
to
on.
keep up. Excuse me?
Turn your mic on.
Thank you. There's a lot to unpack there.
Can you have them pull the slides back up and go back to the second to last slide? Thanks.
Yeah,
It has
thanks.
all the packages on it because I
Oh,
think you're
great,
going to want to
thanks.
ask questions about the.
One of the
Yeah.
questions I have is about the survey. What time of day were the surveys done? What days of the week were they done? I'd like that first, then I have others.
MTS MC spread it out. It was online survey, but they had the paper as well. So they would do pop-up events in the morning commute and in the evening commutes. And then the workshops were held generally in the evenings to try and get people the chance to, make the workshops.
Okay, so that sort of perhaps might a little bit limit the senior community because of nighttime, because of not all of us seniors, and I'm okay with it, but not all of us are okay with online surveys. So that can be a little bit different. I also wanted to know when you did that comparison with the different Portland, San Francisco, that slide, can you bring that one up, please? Thanks.
Go back a few slides here.
It's one of those. I know it's in there
One more.
somewhere.
There we go.
Thanks. The problem that I have with that survey, once again, it's great, but it's only adult.
Well, this was just a slide to show the boards and transportation committee, just the adult. We didn't have SDM in here as well. The survey was just asking people, we didn't tell them what the peer prices were. We were just asking them what they think of, what kind of fare they use, and then.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. Are you saying Portland didn't charge $250 for $280?
For their adult. That's
Right.
their adult
What I'm
price.
saying is I would have liked to have seen a senior
No,
demographic like this
yeah.
because I just recently traveled in the last 2 years via public transit Amtrak to Portland, to Seattle, to Chicago, to New Orleans, to Washington, D.C. And my fares were extremely low. I paid 45 cents on a trolley in New Orleans, as a senior. So those fares do not reflect the senior community. I wanted to give that feedback. And then Governor Newsom gave a heck of a lot of money to San Francisco for public transit just recently. But because I cannot access on the website because of the limitations here of the internet service, I couldn't give you that information about that. But why is San Francisco getting all of this money from Newsom and we're not getting anything? Who's failing to apply for the grants or the things? Where can we improve in that area? Those some of my comments. Thanks.
Gotcha. And I think what the Bay Area got was a loan that it's a pretty pricey loan, and that was to just help stabilize their capital side more than anything, as well as some of the operations. But it's a loan that they will have to pay back. Otherwise, the state provides pretty much equal funding to each region in the state based on population.
So it's our taxpayers that just don't want to foot the bill in San Diego, more or less, in a way.
Well, we try. I mean,
I know.
the citizens ballot tried a couple of
I
years
know.
ago, right? And yeah.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Yep.
Clyde?
Yeah, I just want to add to the comment about the surveys. If you're doing commute times and evening workshops, a lot of seniors, particularly disabled seniors, are not going out at commute times or at night. So to get, if you wanted my information, you'd catch me between 9 and 3 or 4. So just that thought. Thanks.
Charlene.
I'd like to also reflect on the fact that I think there's a unequal representation in the survey. A lot of people with disabilities don't have access to computers, or quite a few seniors. We're also on a fixed income. I can't go out and work a few extra hours to make up what I'm having to spend for expenses. I'm stuck. And so I think this needs to be highly considered. Also, hearing that you went to transit centers, a lot of people with this, probably the majority of riders of transit are using paratransit if they have a disability. And those people are not going to transit centers. And again, they don't have the computer access, so they're not getting the computer feedback. You guys have my contact information, and I've never seen anything or heard anything of these surveys. So I figure it appears to me that there is a population that's being left out of the whole process. Thank you.
Bessie.
Yeah. I wanted to add to the surveys. We did put out a survey, and it wasn't included in this because we just got the results yesterday, but we did put out a survey to our paratransit riders. We sent around 3,000 or so links to the survey, and we got around 250 responses, which is really good for that particular survey. And what we would say the majority of the people was around a 70-30 split, where they strongly preferred the same level of service and the fares going up, and a majority of them preferred the package A. So I just wanted to add that in there, that we just got the results, so I wasn't part of this presentation.
May I ask, how were those surveys sent out? And were they in print format?
The paratransit ones, they
Yes.
were sent via email based on our database of email addresses for our paratransit clients.
Because I use the paratransit, I use both. And I never received anything from transit, from SANDAG for transit or anything asking for a survey to be filled out.
And that was Vasi from MTS, speaking on behalf of MTS. So that came directly from MTS, right? Through your portal that you have access to people's emails, I guess, right?
Yeah, it came directly from me, so you should have received the email from me. And like I said, it was based on our database, so maybe we didn't have the correct email address or something along those lines. That's something we can definitely look into. But
yeah. Mark.
I didn't happen to hear if paratransit was included for consideration for the rate increases, and if so, to what degree?
Right. So generally, transit agencies are allowed to charge double the adult one-way fare for paratransit. And so currently both agencies do that. So the adult one-way fare is $2.50 today. And so their paratransit fee is $5. That's the federal requirement. We didn't really talk too much about that because I think, well, first, we can't model the results of that. So we couldn't really, I mean, that was discussed, but essentially, and I think in their in-depth proposals, I think they just said it was going to be the same doubling, right? What I've heard from both agencies, though, and City may talk about it later today, is they're both considering maybe a slightly less than doubling in the proposed package that they bring to their board, because that's usually one of the things their boards and the public commenters that they get at the board items when they do talk about that is, this is the population who it hurts the most. And so, that kind of increase is harder. So it's a kind of a sneak peek you're getting from my mouth today, but I'm hearing they may not fully double. So, they're talking about what is the $3 one-way fare. So that could be $6 for paratransit. I think they're thinking of doing something, either keeping it at $5 or something in between.
So I'm getting a definite maybe?
Yeah, definite maybe.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Sharon.
Yeah, one more thing about has there been any consideration to put a nominal fee for students? Because I know you introduced the students for free a couple of years ago. How about getting some revenue from that source as well? Nominal, but still a contribution.
I think that's a non-starter. Both the board at SANDAG every time YLP comes up, almost to a T, every one of them says they support YLP as it is. So it's not as massive. It's not, in the past, it wasn't a massive revenue source from the youth. So I think the board and then the MTS and NCD boards are also in support of it. You know, SANDAG's currently helping to subsidize the YLP still today. So to MTS and NCD, as long as SANDAG can keep helping to subsidize that a little bit, they're not as worried about implementing a fee. I think they really just want to keep YLP free and just get youth learning to how to ride, getting them to ride. And hopefully when they turn 19, they buy a monthly pass and stay as transit riders for life. Tim and I, we have in the budget, the FY27 budget that the board just approved the draft of, we're going to do a big survey over the next year and a half to try and understand, because the YLP started back in May of 2022. So there's a bunch of kids who are maybe 17 or 18 when it first started who have now aged out. We're going to try to reach out and do in-depth surveys of how much are they actually still riding today. And so then we can show the board this really is working. You know, the value for the current youth is, you know, I think everyone understands that it's huge. It's great getting youth out there, even if some people feel that some buses sometimes is just overridden by a bunch of screaming 16-year-olds, but getting them out there is important to them. And then but then the other big question will be, are they really becoming lifetime riders? It's only been a few years, but I think we'll try and do that kind of longitudinal study to find out. So yeah, that was asked though, like, should we maybe think of a nominal fee for youth? And that's been the board love it. They love YLP. Yeah.
Kate.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do, I want to ask, do you have any estimate of how many percentage-wise of your users are over the age of 65 and how many are under the age of 18?
We don't. Tim's like nodding. Okay. He can maybe pull it up right now, even.
The reason I think I'm asking that question is because it seems like you're getting a lot of feedback that the most vulnerable groups in our community, those that can afford it the least, our youth and our seniors who are both not of working age, they are the ones that need these protections the most. So I'd be curious if there would be any consideration to a study on a fare reduction program to, you know, similar to the youth program for seniors.
Right.
Because I think from the working public, there might be some ability to withstand higher rate increases if it means getting our seniors out.
Yeah, and that's what the kind of questions we were asking. And that's why I think the final proposals you'll see for SDM, it's not as high of a jump as the others. And maybe even in a package B scenario, actually having a lower SDM price to help reduce that. And again, in San Diego, like I said, in other agencies, well, besides the one Claudia was talking about, where 45 cents in New Orleans is pretty awesome, right? But, or Sharon was talking about that, right? The most agencies do just half off for senior disabled. Where here in San Diego, it's 67% off. So we're maintaining that, which is important, and keeping it at a super low price to begin with. And Tim, do you want to, and then there's ridership numbers and then there's actual revenue numbers. And so most of the revenue is coming from adults, the adult pass price, but we do know that it does hurt those who are riding SDM when you do raise it.
Yes. So I don't have 65, but I do happen to have some data in front of me from our 2023 onboard survey. So this is a survey that we conduct every 5 years, I want to say. And so we have surveyors go onto every transit route in the region, so bus, trolley, basically capturing everything. And it's a collection of the folks who are on the transit that day. So it doesn't represent everything, but it's a survey, you know, it's a sample. And I don't have the 65 plus, but I have by 60 to 69 and 70 plus. So 8% of the onboard survey respondents were in the 60 to 69 range, and 4% were in the 70 plus range. So that's 12% combined. Let's say 10% is going to be that 65 plus population. And just while I have the mic, we did actually hear like an outsized proportion of survey respondents. Brian was talking about the two surveys that we did, the one in the fall, the one in the spring, from those same age groups. So it was 12% of riders. We had 20% of our respondents were in those age groups in the first survey, and then 37% of our respondents in the second group. So to obviously, we're not going to reach every single person who wants to respond to a survey. And I apologize that we didn't do more outreach, but to say, yeah, and then to STAC as well. And I'll say that I dropped the ball on communicating the survey availability to you. But we did hear, 37% of our respondents in the most recent survey were in the 60+ range of age category. So we did hear from a variety of ages, age groups, and so we value that. But we're also taking notes today, and like Brian said, we're going to be communicating what we hear from the STAC to MTS and NCTD for their board consideration, and also to our transportation committee for their consideration when it comes to them for the final approval, if so. Hopefully I answered that question correctly, Kate. But
thank you so much, Tim. I think that helps to add a little bit of context. And also it's great to hear that the actual numbers on the survey that was taken, it sounds like you actually had a higher proportion of riders who were seniors or people with disabilities to respond to it than the actual rider rate itself. So that's good news. Thank you.
Clyde.
Thanks. I'm in the unpopular minority on this, but I've got to say it. I live where the 305 North County bus runs back and forth, and I literally have to be home either extra earlier or later in the afternoon because the bus goes right past Mission Hills High School, loads up with high school students, so much so that they're crowded around the driver. And if I'm trying to get out, some people have to get off the bus to let me out. So it's really crazy. And one other thought about that is, and I'm glad they're writing and I understand the purpose, but another thought is, maybe people appreciate more what something they've had to pay something for. What if they had like a $5 a month pass or, something that would actually say, well, I paid for that, I'm going to use it and see some value there and bring in a little bit of money. Because I don't know how many kids get on that bus, but it's crazy. Thanks.
Alex.
Yeah. So have you ever considered a sliding scale for the fees? So for people that makes more, there are seniors that have more ability to pay more. Is that an administration nightmare?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a few agencies around the country who have implemented a low income type of a pass program. LA has something. And again, they have so much sales tax money coming into them, they can afford to do something like that. Bay Area, I think, has something as well. But again, they also have some decent money coming in. We did consider it a little bit, but ultimately, we'd probably have to raise the adult fare even more to afford that. And Kate, I forgot to reply to you, but it's kind of in this as well. We did do a study a couple of years ago, the big transit fare discount study, and I think I presented that to the STAC a couple of years ago. But it was because in the regional plan, we actually look at reducing fares massively by 2035 to really encourage ridership. But it's a cost. It's a massive cost. And it's part of the whole regional plan's massive cost to increase transit services across the board, new rail lines, all kind of new rapid bus routes, increased frequencies, and then even increasing subsidies for different riders. So when we did a ton of surveying and outreach on that project, one of the big first things we heard from a lot of folks then was we'd rather just see transit service increased before you go down the route of discounting fares, because again, it was explained during all that big discounts have big costs. And so while it's tough, I think with our current fare structure, the thought is, there are a lot of SDM riders who are getting a pretty good discount from the current adult fare, and the adult fare hadn't been changed much since 2009. So it hadn't, it was way behind inflation. But it's kind of time to play catch up, and I don't think it's even catching up to what the inflationary increases would have been. I think that would be, your head would roll if you saw that. So that was a long answer and to do low income, you then have to have some sort of verification process. So you could use SNAP or you could use other things like that as the method, but it does cause administrative costs as well to administer something like that.
And what about corporations that buy packages? Can they pay more?
Well, we actually sell them for less too. So like big companies get, they get fair, they have employer program where they get a discount to offer there. So I mean I think the finance folks at MTS, their boards are asking their staff, like, have you looked into things like that? It's just harder. MTS and NC really have never been a asking for donations kind of agencies, unfortunately.
But that could be another source of revenue for those.
Possibly. And they are
packages,
looking
right?
into P3, and Mark talks about that, and his finance folk talk a little bit about the P3, the private public partnership type things that they're exploring to do as part of that.
Yeah. And I have to say the young program, it really works. My daughter was in that program, and then she totally taught their friends how to use it. And a lot of those kids are not driving. Right. They are 19, 20, and they are not getting their licenses because they love transit.
Well, we're going to get their information when we do our study. The study will kick off probably like next, like 8-10 months from now when we do that backward study.
Mark.
Thank you.
That's Wayne.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Wayne.
Yeah, I just had a question on the survey. I seen like 3 different states with the cities in those states that you chose. How did you go about choosing those states?
MTS was calling them their peer agencies. They often do peer analyses on performance metrics and things like that. I think that's just been their historical grouping of what they call peer agencies. Somewhat similar population or geographic sizes. I think they all have light rail of some sort, like we do here with the trolley. So it's semi-similar. There probably is a few others that would be good proposals for peers, but that's kind of their historic.
Thanks, Brian. I just wanted to make a comment on behalf of specialized transportation recipients. So I think the timing is going to be really important on any fare changes if you don't want to impact agencies that do purchase transit on behalf of their clients. This will impact our metrics during cycle 13. It's going to be hard to create budgets for cycle 14 if decisions aren't made prior to that being opened. And I think Adriana has some additional comments on this as well.
Yeah, working with Marcy, just so you can understand the impact it would have on our clients. We pay for bus passes for about 400 individuals right now. We have 100 people that we're already unable to serve every month that are going on a wait list. So we're buying a lot of bus passes. They're all SCM passes. We do not receive any discounts for those. So to increase a fare, look at package A where it's almost 30% of an increase. That's 30% less bus passes we can provide, 30% less trips we can count. So it does have a really large impact, especially if we have a whole other year left in our cycle by the time this goes into play.
No, I think we heard that. I know Tim heard that from you guys in advance and talked with the grant program folks about what they can do in the short term with that. And then we were also asking internally, like, how come you don't get a discount? Because there is bulk discounting that they offer. So, I mean, I know, yeah, I wish you could go beg MTS entities somehow to do something on that side. That's not us, but yeah, I wish.
I just want to add, while we're talking about discounts, we don't get discounts on MTS access vouchers as well, where we pay for almost $4,000 to $5,000 a month worth of access vouchers. Just putting it out there.
Just saying. Any other comments on this before we release Brian? See no further comments, we can move to the next item. Thank you. Item 4.2 is a discussion item on the advanced planning for the airport transit connection project. The SDOC is asked to consider and discuss transit user experiences for remaining alternatives. Marissa Mangan and Evan Funk will provide the update.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marissa Mangan. I'm a transportation planner here at SANDAG in our mobility division, and I'm joined by my colleague, Evan Funk, another regional planner. You'll hear from both of us today on a quick airport transit connection update as far as where we are in our planning process, and then we'll have a discussion to get some insight and input from you all on user experience related to airport transit connection and what we should keep in mind as the project moves forward. So just at a high level and make sure everyone understands what we mean when we say an airport transit connection that we're planning for. We're very lucky to have an airport that's downtown in many ways, but it's still disconnected from our regional transit system in other ways. And so we are focused on figuring out how to better connect the airport to both of our major transit hubs, Santa Fe Depot in downtown and Old Town Transit Center in Old Town. And the regional plan that SANDAG just recently adopted assumes both near-term and long-term solutions to better connect our airport to our regional transit system. The plan has two different horizon years, as we like to call them, 2035 and 2050. By 2035, it's envisioned that better bus services in the form of rapid bus connections would better connect to the airport. And then longer term, out to 2050, would be an improved connection by way of a rail connection of some kind. And we've been studying a lot of different concepts for rail connections that I'll talk about in a moment. With that approach, we're working hard on defining what the rail concepts and connections are. We've had a large set of different concepts and we've pared them down significantly, and we're almost to the end of that process. And we'll be going to our transportation committee to give them an update and recap on the whole study this summer. Before we talk about what some of those concepts look like and what our planning progress has shown to date, we want to remind everyone that there are airport transit connections available today. Same thing, connecting airport to both downtown and Old Town. MTS operates a Route 992 from early morning to later evening, but it does drop off to 30-minute frequencies in the evenings, but it serves the airport 15 minutes all day, 7 days a week. There's opportunities to improve frequency for that route in the near term, and we're working with MTS to discuss solutions on how to fund that. At the same time, the airport authority themselves operate a free shuttle between Old Town Transit Center and the airport. It runs every 20 minutes, uses all electric vehicles. They've been doing that as a precursor to the grand opening of their Terminal 1, Part 1, and they'll be continuing to run that. There's opportunities to improve frequency and service on that route as well. So we're keeping those things in mind as we talk to both of those agencies, just to acknowledge there are connections today and we're looking at solutions to make those better. As far as looking out into the future, I mentioned the airport rapid bus services that we'd be studying and looking at in the near term. And then longer term, we're focused also on figuring out what's the most suitable rail connection option between airport and our transit hubs. Many concepts that SANDAG had developed to date include connections that are fulfilled with an automated people mover. Airports like Oakland, San Francisco have these types of driverless rail connections to get to their BART system or other places. And it's something we've looked at as some of the concepts we've developed, in addition to looking at extending the trolley to the airport. Both people mover and the trolley solutions have benefits and drawbacks. There's pros and cons to all types of the concepts. And I'll just rattle out a few right now, which are that for people mover, it's a brand new technology. It requires all new infrastructure, whether it's elevated up above the ground as pictured on the left or something that's tunneled, it would be all brand new. The beauty of that is that it's separated from the street, but then you'd have to kind of transfer between a people mover and something else like trolley or heavy rail train. The other thing to keep in mind about a people mover is that because it's brand new, it requires its own dedicated maintenance and storage facility, something we don't have right now for that, and we'd have to find room for that in the urban core, and that's really tough and another expense. When it comes to extending the trolley to the airport, what's ideal in some cases about the trolley is that it gets to share track with existing trolley lines like blue and green. We've demonstrated we can make that work. They all can play in the same space. A new airport line overlapped with blue and green lines running at good frequencies. It's possible. There's also opportunities to think about how we can improve the trolley track infrastructure by extending a trench that we have downtown to lower the trolley below more streets so that it's not disrupting traffic or getting held up in any way, and it's more convenient for users in many ways. But that's a really expensive addition. So it's a lot of things that we're keeping in mind for both types of rail options as we think about the future of a suitable rail connection to the airport. I'm going to hand it off to Evan to review what we've learned from our airport travel survey.
So in 2024, as part of our airport transit planning. We conducted the first survey post-COVID on how residents, visitors, and employees travel to and from the airport. So this was helping SANDAG's regional plan as well as ATC, or Airport Transit Connection Planning. This was in-person, online responses on airport premises as well as online. So some of the key results that we got are what you would expect. How do people get to the airport? We call this the mode of how people get to the airport. And some of the results line up with the region at large, in that residents still rely on either having somebody drop them off or parking their personal car at about 45% for dropping off, or 16% for parking. Whereas public transit's about 1%. So it's very low and very similar to what the region is at large. Visitors are very much the same, whereas Uber and rental cars are, around 30%, and again, public transportation only about 1%. So that was kind of the result. And another thing we did note, though, is that we asked, did respondents use transit at another airport in the past year? And almost half of respondents said that they used transit at a different airport within the last year, which is significant. It says that when there is good transit at airports, people will use them. Another result we got was where do people come from to get to the airport? There's a lot of destinations that visitors go to in downtown. So this is a map of downtown San Diego. It shows bubbles of varying sizes in and around downtown San Diego. The bubbles represent trips to the airport, larger bubbles meaning more trips. So based on the responses we received, we found that passengers coming from downtown often come from areas that are very well served by transit. The lines on the map represent the trolley and the 992 bus line. So places like the Convention Center, Marina District, and Broadway. These are places that are well served by transit, but only about 2% of trips from downtown to the airport are on transit. So these are potentially future use cases and users of an airport transit connection service. Finally, we wanted to consider airport employees. So there's about 6,000 people that work on airport premises every day. And these are important for ATC planning because they're people who travel to the airport on a regular basis. And about 10% of airport employees get to work on transit, which is much higher than the average San Diegan. We have a pie chart on screen here showing that a large percentage of airport employees live in central San Diego, about 36%, with about 5% living downtown. So these are central areas well served by transit, and hopefully the transit connection could capture these employee trips as well. So that's a summary of our survey and some of the key results. Moving on from the survey, we'll move to kind of the main topic of discussion, which is our the planning process and our pare down process, as we're calling it, for paring down the remaining options. The project has been in a pare down process. So from the start, we had more than 20 different alignments we were looking at. This included options to the north of the airport, to the rental car center, and Old Town. However, we've done a couple rounds of paring down. Our first round got rid of some options that wouldn't have connected very well to the regional transit system as effectively. It wouldn't have served our residents, our visitors, and our employees. In the second round, we looked at cost estimates, complexity, feasibility, and pared out some more options. And so we have a smaller number now, and we're in the process of modeling the ridership as well as the station to station and total travel times. And that's kind of the phase that we're in planning. And at the end of this pare down, we'll have kind of a smaller set of concepts to recommend to the board to move into environmental analysis. I wanted to note that what we have paired out at this point are what we call the north leg only concepts. So what we have remaining are concepts that go to downtown San Diego from the airport, including Convention Center, 12th and Imperial, the Civic Center and Santa Fe Depot, as well as some that go both downtown and to the rental car center at this point. So our question to STAC, so while we're still in the planning phase, we're not in the design phase, but we are doing our best to set up the project for our later stages of design and construction. We're now finalizing the planning study and a refined list of options for concepts. Many of these remaining options include stations that are not at ground level, so we call these grade separated. On the screen, we have 3 examples from the San Diego region of stations that are grade separated. On the left, we have the SDSU underground station. So this is our only underground station. It's kind of like a subway, totally underground. The second one is an elevated trolley station. So this is one that's near UCSD. This is on the blue line. This one has an elevator and stairs to reach it. And then finally, on the coaster, there's a station at Solana Beach, which is in a trench. So it's kind of, it's not underground, but it's not at grade. So this one was to separate it from car traffic. So what we wanted to hear in terms regarding the rail planning is your perspective on the user experience of these stations as they exist today in our transit system, as well as any anecdotal experiences or anything you've heard from the community, and any future considerations we should be considering in future phases of the project. So while of course any future stations would be ADA accessible, we understand that accessible doesn't mean convenient, right? So because all 3 of these, underground stations, aerial stations, stations in a trench are in consideration in the remaining concepts, we want to know what we should know. So I'll open it to comments at this point, even though this isn't the end of the presentation. We have a little after. We are going to open it to comments. That's okay, Tim? Thanks.
Charlene?
Yes, any station that is elevated or below ground that will have an elevator access needs to have 2 elevators as a requirement. If one elevator goes down, which is a good example, is at the Solana Beach, having an elevator go down and having to try to get out of that area was very difficult. I had to deal with it for a while and kept nagging them about their elevator because I only have one way to get out. I can't do the stairs. And if there's one elevator and it is no longer working, I'm grounded. And if I'm at the wrong level when it goes out, I'm really messed up. So without any question, no matter cost, if you're going to do elevators, there must be 2. Thank you.
Alex?
Yeah, I think an issue with elevators, especially in the central downtown area, is vandalism. So and the fact that the manufacturers of elevators are so overwhelmed with work and maintenance that it takes months to get any parts for those elevators. And I was an advocate of elevators whenever we did any installation like this, especially with the blue lines. I really advocated for elevators, but now we see that is a big cost for the operator to have them. So that's a big consideration.
My question is, if you don't have elevators, what is your access and egress for a person with a disability that can't do stairs?
Maybe consider not having this type of access, like have something that is totally ground, or even, and especially because it costs. So that's, if you're going to take all this money to provide this service, why don't we put it in a different type of transportation?
Sharon?
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the airport flyer, I really like that little bus. I've taken it just to ride to see where it goes and how it works. And I've talked to a lot of my senior friends and say, hey, when you come back from the airport, just have somebody pick you up at Old Town, because that's much easier than trying to go into the airport and find your friends, go there. The only problem that I've noticed is dark hours. When it's dark, whether that be morning or afternoon or late evening, whatever that might be, you need more security because they're just reluctant to want to wait outside for their friend to pick them up. That's all. But I do like the flyer.
Kate?
perhaps I'm missing, is there a reason why it must be grade separated, like geography wise, or another way that we can't change the built environment or, build up an area that would then level out? If you're going to build new track anyway, you're going to have to do some building, right?
Right.
Could you not build out so that it becomes a level infrastructure?
What's most feasible on the people mover side is having separate infrastructure, whether it's all aerial or elevated or underground. There's more flexibility with the trolley light rail system because of the existing track that's there, needing to share some of that infrastructure before kind of spurring off and becoming elevated to get to the airport. So there's just things that have already been studied at a preliminary level about what's going to be required for each type of mode. There's also items to keep in mind regarding how much we're adding to crossings. Anytime railroad crossing arms are down, the state hates layering in more services that are going to cause more delays and make it even less safe sometimes for cyclists and pedestrians. It's very chaotic and downtown's super constrained. And so we have assessed those types of things to then determine for our remaining concepts what has to be considered for people mover versus trolley as feasible.
And I guess I can certainly understand that, I guess, but the transfer stations themselves, like where you get on, the rest of it can be lifted, run along parallel to the highway or something like that. But at the point where you transfer, if that could be a parallel station, and then I think just bringing up the point about whether this is an MTS trolley line or the people mover, I think as somebody who lives with mobility disability, if you're traveling, carrying a lot of luggage, carrying kids, carrying dogs, whatever, the least number of transfers possible is generally preferred. So my preference would personally be for an extension of the trolley line rather than adding that additional step of the people mover.
I guess you can just continue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your input. So in the next step here, we're going to talk about the more near term and the midterm, the ATC, what we're calling the rapid bus, or the rapid options. So in the near term, SANDAG has prioritized improving bus access between, again, Old Town and the airport and downtown and the airport. So in the near term, as Marissa mentioned, improvements to the Route 992 and the flyer. But in the midterm, this means planning and implementing a rapid bus to the airport along either the similar routes to what is currently the 992 or the flyer. So pictured up on screen, we have from left to right, we have the 992 in downtown. So 992 includes bus stops downtown on Broadway and Harbor Drive. We'd love to hear any perspectives on how to improve the experience of taking the bus from downtown to the airport. The flyer shuttle between airport and Old Town has stops on airport property and at Old Town, where at the airport, it's near where the kind of all the other shuttles are. And then finally, there's bus stops for the 992 on airport property. Since the new T1, Terminal 1 is opened, these have been moved to the elevated departure gates. So open to any perspective on future improvements or just any anecdotal experiences on the usage of any of these bus stop amenities. This will inform our future planning of a proposed rapid service to the airport. And this will actually conclude the presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any public hearing comments from members of the public?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Cesar Javier.
We are inspired by the inputs of our elders to the left side. We want to hear more intelligences from the right side, Ma'am Chair. We are aging very fast. And that gentleman second to the left there, consistently with us in the aging independence, we appreciate his consistency. And so with us now, with SANDAG, our only hope, because this SANDAG is Association of Thinkers. For now, yes, a very good plan. But let's look forward. You know, the astronaut has flyby in the moon. And sooner, the better we could locate another airport. And using all mobility and circulation above ground, underground, and probably, why not by water? Like
Thank you very
the
much. Your
city of
time has
Venice.
expired. That concludes the public comments.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from our members? Please raise your hand. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Now we can move to the next item. Item 4.3 is an information item with updates from MTS, NCTD, and FACT. Do representatives of these agencies have any updates to share? MTS?
Just let everybody know where we're at with number of operators. We're now reached 499 operators with our next class starting in April 20th of 16 operators. Next service change will be in June 7th. And we have two upcoming trolley bridges, one for the copper line in El Cajon from El Cajon to Santee. That'll be April 18th and 19th. And then another one for the orange line, which will be from Grossmont to El Cajon, April 25th and 26th. And then our upcoming event for Rock and Roll Marathon, which will be in May 31st. Just like any other year, just expect delays and detours, and we're pretty much looking at the same thing as last year. Thank you.
Thank you. North County Transit District.
Good morning. For NCTD, we currently just had our service change in February. Our next service change is actually going to go into effect July 26th. We're not anticipating any really schedule changes or anything like that, but we are kind of trying to see where we can make it better. May 4th is also our ADA review group meeting, so you guys are welcome to join us. And I think that's it. That's it for NCTD.
Thank you. FACT.
Thank you, Chair. Currently, we are currently active with our AFA Cycle 2 grant, where we have on-demand wave service and also pre-scheduled ambulatory for seniors and those using other mobility devices. We are close to completing our federal standards for website accessibility, known as WCAG. This ensures that our website and digital tools are fully usable for everyone, including those using screen readers. At our May CAM meeting, our website team will be giving a briefing on recent website accessibility audits. If there's enough interest from the CAM members for a deeper dive, we'll be happy to turn that into a special training session to help our partners get set to speed on any of these requirements. The due date for other agencies, smaller agencies, is April of next year. Also, we are in the middle of celebrating our 20th anniversary, serving San Diego County with accessible transportation. And we have also been awarded Outstanding Transportation Agency by CalAct, and we will be celebrating our award at the conference later this month. Thank you, Chair. That's our update.
Thank you, Allie. Do we have any public comments on this item?
We do have one public comment, Cesar Javier.
We have been with you, SANDAG, for almost 3 years. And the District Councilor, District 8 of the City of San Diego has failed us as far as this Tijuana river pollution crisis. And we lost our trust. The sick and dying are ignored, grossly neglected, not any single centavo budgeted to cure care for the sick and dying. That's only one page. The other pages, my God, The show window city is destroying San Diego. Geographically, demographically, God help SANDAG.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
Okay, it's time for member comments and questions. Go ahead, Charlene.
Yes, I want to remind MTS that when you use the bridges with your trolley, there are people who have disabilities and some other people too, but people with disabilities especially, that those bridges are very difficult to deal with sometimes, trying to find out where the buses are, get from the trolley station to or stop to the bus and then back onto a trolley. So please make sure there are people to assist. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Thanks. I just wanted to comment. I go to Trader Joe's. I know you're all excited about that, but I go to Trader Joe's and I go to Ralph's, and they're all up at the UTC on Nobel Drive. I can't get to them Monday through Friday. That construction on Villa La Jolla Drive, turning left on Nobel, will not have stops because of construction. It just got finished about 6 months ago for the year and a half that it was disrupted. So here I am disrupted again. I cannot get to UCSD urgent care, which is on Villa La Jolla Drive and Holiday Court. So I have to get off at an earlier stop, walk there and walk uphill. And when I leave there, I have to walk downhill to come back. So I'm just complaining. I just wanted to let you know I'm tired not being able to get to my little Trader Joe's. And if I want to go there on the weekends, it's only every 30 minutes. So, that's impacted for me, and I guess that's basically my regular complaint is just the construction seems to be on and on and on and on. So thank you.
Thank you for the updates. Item 4.4 is a discussion item on unmet needs. The SDAC members and the public will have the opportunity to discuss new or continuing unmet transit needs in the San Diego region. Are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one, Cesar Javier.
What word could we convey to seek or persuasion? Diplomatic way of telling, let's work together. We have not met transit needs to haul the sewage toxic liquid from Tijuana out somewhere for treatment or for deposit, like this nuclear waste in Oceanside. Anyway, our point here is, can we prepare something for circulation mobility to start cleaning the cost of diseases, Alzheimer, forgetfulness, stress, fear? I think SANDAG has the reservoir of philosophers and
Time has
thinkers.
expired. That
SANDAG,
concludes
Madam
the
Chair.
public comments on this item.
Thank you. Any members have any comments on unmet needs? Go ahead, Kate.
Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to let everybody know, I know that a lot of you guys are on the emailing list here, but Mark and I just began a coalition called the San Diego Accessible Rider Coalition. We recognize that there are so many different working groups across the county who are doing fabulous work in terms of getting accessible ride options to riders, but there's still a lot of gaps in terms of where we're including the voice of the rider in a lot of those decisions. So if anybody has interest in joining the coalition, we meet the first Thursday of every month at 3 p.m. And if you'd like to meet me at the end here, I have a brochure if you'd like some more information. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Charlene.
Yes, I am still trying to figure out why people can use the flex route in North County to get from the Escondido Transit Center to Wild Animal Park. But I, who cannot walk from the road to the gate at Wild Animal Park, cannot get service. That is unfair, unequal service. So if I had an ability to, you know, have the mobility to do that short walk, I would have service, but because I don't, I'm left out. That needs to be rectified. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. That was our last scheduled item for this meeting. Our next regular STAC meeting will be on June 23rd, 2026 at 10 a.m. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.